Hey guys, me again, Orchler. What if? So where we last left off? Let's see. Checking. Where we last left off on what if issei had the Chaos Flame. I'll give everyone a nice little rundown of characters that we have in play currently. So, the people that there are is Dog, Issei's mom, who I just call her Mama Issei. Mama Issei. Okay. You have Katase, Murayama, which those are two Kendo girls, for those who don't know. Motohama and Metsuda, those are the preferred trio. Then, of course, at the moment, you got Rias, Akuno, Kiba, and Koneko are the devils in the area. I'll continue on from where I left off with them pretty much knocking out Koneko. And I'll also give you guys a rundown of his powers. So essentially what he has right now is embedding certain things like inanimate objects like a pen or a knife with the Chaos Flame. And that would then, if the wielder of said weapon or item want to, they could activate it and transform it into something like the knife would become like a short sword. Something like that. He can change things into Chaos Demons. I'll explain this real quick. When his dog, which was a Cerberus puppy, was dying from actually saving Issei after he got like turned around and jumped by a magical fairy hunter, we'll just call them. Dog was critically injured, like pretty much was on death's door, but Issei decided to channel the Chaos Flame into it, sort of charging it, like supercharging it in that moment, converting its soul into what you would call like a extension of the Chaos Flame. Issei has control over Dog to some extent. It can understand him, it will follow his orders, but it has free will still. Because like I said, the Chaos Flame is all about, it acknowledges that the Chaos Flame is there, that is where they originate from. That Issei, at least. That's where he originates from. But he isn't beholden, or anything that he has created isn't beholden to the Chaos Flame itself. They could essentially say, we're not following you, and bugger off somewhere. That is how a Chaos Demon really is, if I didn't run that down. But they all typically stick together because they all believe the same thing. And he has pyromancies. Oh, I misspelled that greatly. Sorry, I'm just rewriting that in my book. I misplaced my other one. Pyromancy. Where I last left off, though, let me close the book. Issei and Metsuda are the only two at the moment that know about the outside world, if I remember. The Chaos world, at least. Sorry about that. I have completely lost where I was. I was just making sure I had all my information straight. So they knocked out Koneko. I'm sorry if I'm backtracking. I really am. They have knocked out Koneko. And now Issei and Motohama, it's not Metsuda. If I said Metsuda, I was wrong. And Motohama, they're going to backtrack and get out of there before Rias has time to show up. The Harpy bodies are still around, and they figured this devil, they try to keep Devil Society secret, so he figures whoever's going to come is probably going to get rid of the bodies somehow. Issei isn't really in a rush to meet with them either, because he has figured out never underestimate your opponents. That's what happened when that stray devil underestimated him, his mom, and Dog. They paid the price, and now they're dead, but he's still here. So he's going to take it more easy and be more cautious with everything that comes his way. He isn't going to become cocky and try to, for instance, take on more than he can handle. He doesn't mind standing in a fight, but he also ain't dumb enough to take one when he doesn't need to. So Issei and Motohama back away and get out of there. They're not gonna deal with that. They call Dog forward and they rush home. Now I'm gonna say Motohama is actually gonna be with them. Is actually just gonna tell his mom that he's sleeping over at Issei's house. As Issei and Moto are talking to each other back and forth about what's exactly gonna happen now, they've already encountered the devil, and Motohama and them don't know if the devil they have a devil that can track them. Because though they can hide their power and such, hiding a scent is much more difficult. It's not like they can't stop smelling. So they made sure to move around for a bit, and then they ran through some water to see if that if they had something that could track them like that. So as they made it home, Issei's mom sort of questioned them why it took him so long to get home as they explained the situation. She understands and says that they're just gonna have to lie low for a while, otherwise they may be putting themselves and the family as a unit together at threat. Oh, damn, yawning. That's essentially how she has phrased it, and they're gonna leave it be and just go to bed. Her warding's still around the house, so if something did try to track him, it would be much more difficult. But when Rias finds Koneko after Rias, Akano, and Kiba have dealt with their stray devils, she comes to see that Koneko is surrounded by all these harpy bodies, and all the harpies are dead. She sees that there's giant cleaves in them, so she makes the assumption that it wasn't Koneko who did this. There was a third party involved. They can see a few scorch marks here and there, and they see one harpy that looks like it's been torn apart. Like something bigger came over and ate it. As they try to get Koneko up, but she's out cold. They're doing things. They're shaking her, poking her, and trying to get her to respond, but she just won't. So what they do is that they decide to take her back to their base. I'll just call it that. Their home for now. As they're speaking, trying to get Koneko to wake up, try and get her to wake up, they decide that maybe it would be just best to let her sleep till morning. Because it looked like she got hit pretty hard. She has a bruise on the side of her head. As now it's coming down to it, Rias is kind of worried because it's been one of the first nights since they've gotten here, and already one of her peerage members has been attacked and taken down, as she's calling it. She doesn't want to say it, but her peerage isn't exactly the strongest. Sure, you got Kiba, who has a very good sacred gear sword birth. You got Akano and her lightning, that is also very good. And Koneko is her rook. She's very physically strong and durable. She's also very small and nimble. That's the thing. She isn't somebody who would so easily be taken down. But then again, she doesn't know she was easily taken down. She figured that she was, considering of how intact the place seemed. So as she's sitting there contemplating something, she gets a feeling that there's something in the city that is bigger than her. As we're going to skip forward again by just a week, Issei and Motohama have taken a break so that way they could not draw attention. And by the time Koneko woke up, the day after, before the time skip, I would say, she said that what attacked her, or what she saw while scouting out the Harpy Den, were two figures. They were pretty big, nothing too grand. It's not like they were towering Greek statues, but they were somewhat tall. They looked pretty strong. And there was a giant fire-like dog, as she describes it, that they had weapons that glowed bright with orange and looked like they were made out of fire and ash. And she doesn't know how to quite explain it. As they ask her to, like, continue on. Like, whew. They need to know, Rias needs to know everything she can. She said, as Koneko goes on to describe the smaller of the two, as she couldn't smell anything on him, that he was clearly human, but his smell was somewhat distorted, saying that it wasn't quite right. It's like ash was blocking her senses in a way. As I'm gonna say, that is somewhat of a thing that the thing can do, is that the chaos weapon, I'll call it that, sort of has a, like I've told you before, it's almost like a sacred gear in some case. It's not like a very high level sacred gear or even a mid level sacred gear like Kiba's. I think Kiba's is a mid level. It's more like a very low level that can only like make the sword stronger and enhance the host a little bit. Nothing too grand. Issei has taken to this and has literally coated himself in a armor set, quote unquote, of this sacred gear, this chaos gear. I'll call it that, chaos gear. Sacred and chaos gear. That way it will be distinct. Chaos gear, so as that way he can be more protected. He did the same for Motohama, but to a lesser degree. He isn't fully gotten out all the kinks yet. It takes a bit of energy to keep the gear running, so to speak. Like, to keep Issei's full armor engaged, he could maybe do it up for an hour. And that's it going at full. That's like him dedicating most, I would say, yeah, most of his magic, I'll just say, his like focus to it. It's physically and mentally draining to keep it like up. So Motohama doesn't have a lot of it. He's got like a few bits and pieces, like a gauntlet, a helmet, and like a shoulder pad. That's what he's got. He's also got the sword, which he tends to use a lot of time in that fully chaos unleashed state, I would say. Not even unleashed, but chaos emboldened? Engaged? Something, a word like that would work with it. Chaos activated blade. That'll work. Issei's got his great big axe, and he hasn't had a hard time keeping that activated either. But I digress. I'm getting off topic. But as Konoko's going over and like revisiting what these people looked like to her, she says they were quite strong. As she would say that maybe the boss, as she could call him, would probably be stronger, if not as strong as Rias. And Rias sort of scoffs at that idea, because she's like, that's quite not quite an imagination you got there, but more like, that's quite something, Koneko. You wouldn't say something that unless you were actually serious. She's like, I didn't get to feel his fire, but I saw him tear apart harpies like no problem. The flames devoured them. It was almost like your destruction magic, almost. As Rias bites on her thumb, she's thinking, how could something like that be? As she's running it through her head on her knowledge of a magic that's similar to the destruction magic. He's called it fire, but it can't be phoenix flames. Phoenix flames turn things to ash. They don't consume them like how Konoko is describing it. The chaos flame like eats. Like literally. It can either create life, destroy life. And when it destroys life, it doesn't burn it to a crisp. It consumes it as fuel almost. It is quite a horrifying and beautiful sight as, not as Konako would describe it, but as some people would maybe. As Rias is listening to this, she's quite worried because now she doesn't know if whatever this figure is, if she could ever fight it face to face, one on one. So she says they'll keep an eye out on their nightly duties while they patrol the area to get rid of stray devil nest. As they keep with this idea, they go out the next week. They're going out again, Rias and them. But it's just so coincidentally, issei and Motohama are as well, with Dog. As they've talked about, as they've looked in the papers, they've seen that there's been some murders going around. They've been quite bloody, quite brutal, and just downright savage. As far as the police can tell, there's no reason, method, or madness to this person's killings. They're just a butcher, as they would be described. But the problem is, they just can't catch him because they're just too elusive. So issei and Motohama sort of try to figure out why and how would this thing be acting like this. Issei's mom didn't want them going after this period, but they said that it's their job to protect the city. And from what they've been described as is like giant claw marks, gashes, and it looks like parts of the body have been eaten, as it was described. Issei says this most likely is a stray devil of some kind, or at the very least some sort of demonic entity that comes from whichever mythology. As far as he can tell, that Japan doesn't really have werewolves. Not typically. He's just confused and concerned. Sorry, I had something. Check out. But as they figure out, they'll just maybe wander around until they find something. As I'll say, the murders have been committed outside of the inner city. They're more along the lines the outskirts and more forest-like areas, abandoned areas. A lot of people that have been killed are like homeless people. So issei and them going from issei and Motohama and Dog, as they're taking a stroll, nightly stroll, I'll just say. They're covered themselves up head to toe, wearing dark clothing. They got their armor on. It's not activated, of course. They got their weapons. Things like that. Issei carries his axe on his back when it's not transformed. He keeps it on his lower back to where he can just go back, grab it, and like whip it out when he needs to. Don't yawn. Damn, that's hard. It's hard not to yawn. When you really want to, it's very, very hard not to. As this goes on for a little while, they eventually start hearing loud, blood-curdling screams as they're like, fuck. Motohama, pick it up. Dog, track. As the dog transforms and starts tracking, they rush after it. As you're like, keep up, Motohama. It's just like, I ain't no supernatural creature like you. It's just like, you got my weapons, don't you? She's like, oh, I hate that dude sometimes. As at this point, Motohama has gotten himself a couple of, like, shin guards. I believe they're called greaves. He's got a couple of those so that way he can keep his legs covered. As he's moving after issei, he's just like, get back here. Eventually come across a site where a homeless group is being attacked by this creature. By this, as like issei said it's a stray devil. It has... Try and give you a good picture of here. Whew. It's a woman. It's 8 feet tall. She's very muscular, very strong, but they notice that she has multiple pairs of arms. She has 2 pairs of arms. 2 on the front, 2 in the back. As she's swinging around, her top 2 arms have these massive bear-like claws on them, and her arms extra hairy like a werewolf, almost like mid-transformation. As they see her face, it has like sharp, like mangled face where there's plenty of battle scars and things running across it. Her two lower arms, they're more skinny, more nimble, and they actually have two weapons in them. They got two daggers. As you got homeless people that try to run away, she'll take a dagger and throw it. As you get to her lower half, her clothes are very torn. It's almost like she was wearing some form of battle gear, like chainmail, leather armor. There's gashes in them where you can see she has been cut, bashed, stabbed, and actually shot. They don't know who shot her, but they give the person congratulations, because that deserves an applause. As Issei and Motohama and Dog are sizing her up, they know they gotta move in fast, so Issei activates his armor and gives out like sort of a bellow, like a shout, challenging her. She whips around, turning around, and they can see more of her face. It's one side is like pretty much beautiful as what they would describe it. She looks like a good example. I'm trying to think of one. Think of Aisha. Is it Aisha? I believe it's Aisha from Danmachi, or if it's wrong, is it wrong to pick up girls in dungeon? She is one of the Amazon sisters, or the Amazonian sisters. No, Aisha is exactly the one that's in the entertainment district. She is the one that is part of Ishtar's group. She has like a mangled smile that curves up higher as she looks at Issei. She can see that he will be something actually worthy of the fight. Her entire thing is that she was searching for a very powerful things to fight, but she has been so caught up in that she killed her master in a rage of bloodlust after he ended like training practice, after she had pretty much mangled her training partner. As she was enraged by this, she attacked him and actually hurt him very badly. She then ran away from the underworld and has come up to, Japan, trying to find things to fight and kill. Issei challenges her by shouting, "Your fight is with me, devil," as he sort of approaches her with no real fear. Issei has sort of sized her up, and he has accepted her challenge, or she has accepted his challenge. As they're doing this like sort of back and forth, he sort of takes his axe and charges it up as it gets bigger and stronger. And the look on her face just gets more excited as she's like feeling her blood is actually pumping, as she can feel Issei is actually indeed a very dangerous opponent. As he gives a stomp with like two smash downs with his axe, it's sort of like a signal, or his way of like issuing it, as she crosses her top arms and the two daggers and sort of makes them go shing as she pulls them apart. He acknowledges this and casts Power Within, Iron Flesh, as he then casts Chaos Whip, Flame Whip, as he sort of spins it around as a whip of flame comes around, as he whips it at her, as it cracks and actually gets her right across the chest, along some of the armor that still remains, as she is thrown back a little bit as she slides. Though she merely gives like a vicious howl in the air as she's excited for this, as she starts charging at him. As he tries it again a couple more times, crack, whip, bang, bang, pop, like you can hear it, the air popping with the heat, as she just shrugs it off and keeps charging at him. As I meant to say those were the powers he was going to use in the fight. Like they are what he has prepared. Power Within isn't like a massive booster. I would say at the moment, it's not very massive. Increases his thing by setting him on fire, as it will do a slow but steadily amount of damage to him. He also has a bit of the healing, the warmth around, so that way you can be healed up when it comes down to it. As she comes at him, he gets the axe and swings it at her as she goes to meet it with her 2 daggers. As issei, at the last second, activates it a bit more, charging it up with fire as it digs into the 2 daggers as it cuts through them, actually getting close and slicing her across the stomach a little bit. As she jumps back as soon as that happens, she looks at her 2 daggers and is actually kind of enraged. These things seem to have some form of importance to her, and she's very angry that they are no longer there. So she gets up, roars at the top of her lung, and keeps on trying to jump at issei. But issei drops his axe, or like deactivates his axe to make it smaller. But he's still keeping the effect on it. As like I said, he can be more readily available to change the weapons. He can make this axe very big, like big, and he can wield it, or he can keep it small to like a more handy axe. As he drops it down, as he waits, as she comes to go like give him like somewhat like a bear hug, she gets those massive claws and gets ready to dig down on him. But in that moment, she takes the axe and quickly slams it into her side, right underneath one of the smaller arms, as he ducks under, trying to rip out as much as he could. As he feels it, as he looks up, as he sees one of the arms on her left side, the small one, is hanging limply. She's like, okay. As he cracks his neck, he puts the axe away and just says, "Chaos Flame take you." As he opens his arms wide up, sort of like accepting some form, like giving her a free shot, she is enraged by this and comes charging at him, just ready to kill him and take his head. So he takes a moment to breathe, think calmly, and charges a bit of flame magic into his fingers. He tries again with the Chaos Whip, but this time she doesn't care, as it hits that arm that was already weakened and slaps it right off. It flies a bit, as you can hear a bit of sizzling as it thumps to the ground. Issei's just like, as he gets ready, as I believe it's called, crap, what was it called? I can't remember its name, I'm sorry. But essentially what it does is he charges it in his right hand. As he waits, ducks under her hit, as she goes to turn around, as he slams his fist right into her chest. As he can feel the flame take a hold of, as it charges up, as he can feel the flame seep into her almost, where he had hit earlier. As it explodes out, pretty much killing her in that instance, as she's laying there fried. Issei is just like, sorry, soul, but this land is mine, and mine alone. As he sort of looks around, sees that a lot of the homeless people are either dead or gone. He walks over and picks up his axe where he dropped it. She's just like, sorry about that, beautiful. You're important to me, you know that? As he can feel the axe sort of hum, as he's just like, oh, this thing can talk. Somewhat. Oh, that's not gonna be weird. As then they hear Matsuda, or Motohama, and Dog come over. It's just Dog's barking and like happy at his master's victory, as Moda is just like, well, you kicked her ass. And it's just like, she was nothing but a wild beast at this point. There was nothing to it. It's kind of sad if you think about it. He's like, well, she came over here messing with our town, messing with your town. As far as I'm concerned, you did what you had to. As Issei's just like, yeah. So then they hear a hey, as they look over, as they see Rias and her group, as they stood off. Rias and them stood off for a while and watched as Issei engaged the the stray devil. As they saw that he was very precise with his movements, as Kiba took note that he was very calculating with his strikes, and Akeno talked about the flame magic and how high of a mastery you have to have of it to be able to do that precise thing with a whip, like the whip construct he made with flame. To be able to do that is very high level skill. Typically when people do a flame whip, it's more like they take it and like whip it down as a wall, like a thing of flame just come flying out. He condensed it and used it properly like a whoosh, like an actual whip. Koneko said those are the guys that she had to, that knocked her out. As Rias and them step forward, Dog transforms and Moda preps his armor while Issei is still in his. As they all stand there, as Issei and Rias have a stare down, as they're waiting for the first one to make the first move. And that's where I think I'm going to be ending this one off at. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. You guys can enjoy this, and tell me what you think of this series. If there's any of you still watching it, tell me what you think about it, and should I just cancel it, give up on it, or what? Because would you guys like me to, like, you know, stop it and just focus on What If Deku and What If Bell? Because I will be going back to that. Still gotta finish some of the series. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys can do this, and I hope you guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life.